Did you know that the iPhone 20 might be the first iPhone that literally has zero traditional buttons, no clicky volume keys, no mute switch, no side button the way you know it, just a smooth slab of glass and metal with solid-state, capacitive controls, and localized haptic feedback that tries to fake the feeling of a real press. And if the latest leaks are even halfway right, Apple's aiming to pair that with a massive 20th anniversary redesign in 2027 that could be its boldest iPhone shift since the iPhone X. Alright, here's the rumor stack. Over the past few days, China-based leaks have fired up the iPhone 20 conversation again, and the theme is clear. Apple wants the 2027 iPhone family, or at least the top-tier anniversary model, to feel like a statement device. Not an iteration, a redesign that screams this is the next era. Today we're talking about three big pieces. First, the buttonless iPhone idea returning again, but this time with more specific details. Second, the crazy display and body redesign rumors, quad curved glass, ultra-thin bezels, and an almost all-screen front. Third, the reality check. Under-display cameras and Face ID tech might still not be ready, which means Apple could ship a compromised cutout even on its most ambitious iPhone. And quick reminder, this is all rumor territory. Some of it comes from known leakers, some of it is supply chain chatter, and some of it is sounds plausible because Apple's been chasing this for years. So treat it like a roadmap, not a launch event. Let's start with the most headline-friendly piece, Apple dropping all traditional buttons. We've heard versions of this rumor multiple times. The idea isn't new. The execution is what keeps failing. The iPhone has flirted with solid-state controls for a while, and you can see why Apple wants it. A buttonless frame makes the device cleaner, more symmetrical, and honestly more futuristic. But the real Apple reason is probably reliability and sealing. Every physical moving part is a point of failure. Every button cutout is another place water, dust, and grime can sneak in. If you can replace mechanical buttons with capacitive zones and haptic feedback, you get a tougher chassis and more internal space flexibility. Now, the new rumor says iPhone 20 handsets will be devoid of physical buttons and will use solid-state capacitive controls with localized vibration feedback. Localized is the important word. Apple doesn't just want the phone to buzz. It wants the phone to make it feel like you pressed a specific spot on the frame. Think of it like the Taptic engine vibe, but spatially targeted so your thumb believes there's a real switch right there. If Apple nails that, the experience could be slick. If they don't, it could be frustrating, especially in moments where you rely on muscle memory. Because real talk, buttons are fast. They work when your hands are wet. They work with gloves. They work when you're half asleep and trying to mute a call without looking. And a lot of tech people still love the mute switch specifically because it's physical and instant. So if Apple removes it, the replacement has to be better, not just prettier. Here's how this could work in practice. Volume controls could become pressure-sensitive zones on the left edge. The action control, or whatever Apple calls it by then, could be a programmable capacitive area that changes behavior based on context. And the side button could become a long press zone that triggers Siri, Apple Pay, or power options. The big question is feedback and false touches. Capacitive controls can misfire if you rest your finger, squeeze the frame, or your case presses into the zone. Apple's going to need serious palm rejection, grip detection, and software tuning so you don't randomly change volume every time you pick the phone up. And cases are another problem people forget. Most iPhone cases are built around physical button cutouts or button extenders. If there are no moving buttons, case makers either need thin, conductive pass-through materials, or Apple needs a standardized way to make capacitive areas readable through cases. If Apple goes this route, expect made for iPhone 20 cases to become a whole new ecosystem with different materials and different price tags. Now, why are we hearing this again for iPhone 20 specifically? Because anniversaries are when Apple is willing to do the risky stuff. The iPhone X was literally built around the 10th anniversary narrative, and it was a hard pivot. Home button gone, Face ID in, gesture navigation, OLED shift, a new design language that lasted years. A 20th anniversary iPhone is the perfect excuse to do another big pivot, remove the last mechanical bits, push further toward an all-glass, all-screen object, and sell it as the future. Which brings us to the second major rumor, the redesign. Multiple reports floating around, including coverage aggregated by sites like Mac Rumors and Partners, point to an all-screen feel with a quad-curved display. Not just curved left and right, but wrapping around all four edges. The leaks talk about ultra-slim bezels as thin as 1.1 millimeters. That's extremely aggressive. That's the kind of number you use when you want the front to look like it's basically pure display. Mock-ups show convex glass blending into a polished frame, with the transition between screen and body feeling seamless. In concept, it's gorgeous. In reality, it raises a bunch of usability questions. First, accidental touches. Apple has done curved edges before lightly, and they generally avoided the extreme waterfall look that some Android phones pushed years ago. Why? Because it's hard to prevent edge touches, hard to protect the screen with a case, and it can introduce weird reflections and glare. But if Apple can engineer quad curved glass while keeping the touch layer smart enough to ignore accidental contact, it could look insane in the hand, like a piece of glass that's been melted into shape. Second, durability. Curved edges can be more vulnerable to drops because impacts often hit the curve. Apple would need stronger glass tech, potentially new frame reinforcement, and a serious strategy for repairability. And yes, I know, repairability and ultra-premium iPhone design rarely walk hand in hand, but still, it matters for real buyers. Third, the camera system. The rumors mention a switch to a new type of camera sensor. Details are light, but the implication is Apple's looking for a leap, not a tweak. A new sensor type could mean better low-light performance, better dynamic range, faster readout for less motion blur, and maybe improvements that enable computational tricks without as many artifacts. But here's where it gets interesting: the front camera and Face ID. The dream is a fully uninterrupted display. No notch, no dynamic island, no punch hole, just screen. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has talked about Apple aiming for an all-glass device without kitouts, and leakers like Digital Chat Station say Apple continues testing under-screen camera tech for that exact goal. The problem is under-display camera quality. Almost every under-display camera we've seen so far looks softer, hazier, and worse than a traditional front camera. Light has to pass through display layers, and the image suffers. You can clean it up with processing, but you can't fully cheat physics. And Apple is the company that will delay a feature for years if it doesn't meet their internal bar, especially for something as visible as selfies, FaceTime, and content creation. So multiple analysts think Apple may not have under-display solved by 2027. Ross Young, for example, has suggested the dynamic island, or a smaller version of it, could persist through 2027. Another leaker, Fixed Focus Digital, claimed Apple is still dealing with under-display Face ID issues, which is even harder than under-display camera. Face ID needs sensors that reliably map depth and infrared patterns. Putting that under an active display is a nightmare. So here's the likely path if the rumors are accurate. Apple shrinks the kit out gradually. Smaller dynamic island first, then maybe a punch hole for the camera with more Face ID components hidden under the display, and eventually fully under-display Face ID and camera when the tech finally catches up. Some leaks even mention Samsung's work in this area, including under-panel camera systems and a face recognition approach branded in rumor space as Polar ID. Whether that name sticks or is even real doesn't matter as much as the concept. Apple may use a hybrid approach. Some sensors under the display, some still visible until performance is perfect. That leads to the third big idea. This anniversary redesign might not land across the whole iPhone lineup. A lot of these reports hint it could debut on a single high-end model. Think iPhone 20 Ultra or some special edition that's priced into orbit. Apple loves tiered rollouts. They can test manufacturing at lower volume, keep yields manageable, and make it aspirational. Meanwhile, the standard iPhone 20 and maybe the 20 Pro could keep a more familiar design, and Apple sells the anniversary model as the futuristic one. Now, quick pivot to the market context, because it matters. Apple's iPhone shipments in China reportedly surged 20% in Q1, even while the overall market declined. And the commentary is basically, as rivals raise prices, Apple looks like value because people trust iPhones to last 3 years or more. It also tells you why Apple might do something dramatic like ditch buttons. It's not just design flexing. It's a way to differentiate hard, justify pricing, and create a new must-have feel in a market where yearly upgrades are slowing down. So where does that leave us? If these rumors are pointing in the right direction, the iPhone 20 could be a device defined by subtraction. 1. Less hardware clutter. 2. Fewer openings. 3. Fewer moving parts. 4. less visible interface hardware on the front. And the entire experience shifts toward touch zones, haptics, and software interpretation of what used to be mechanical. 1. But that only works if Apple sticks the landing. 2. Solid-state buttons have to feel instant. 3. Haptics have to feel precise, not mushy. 4. Accidental touches have to be basically non-existent. And the display redesign has to look futuristic without making the phone annoying to hold, annoying to protect, or fragile. Because tech people won't forgive bad ergonomics. They'll admire the design for 5 minutes, then roast it for 5 years. Nice concept. No way Apple ships that once. So hit subscribe and comment one thing you'd actually miss if Apple removed every physical button: volume, power, or the mute switch. And if you've got a strong take on curved glass displays, drop it, because this is where opinions get spicy. Community call. Would you buy a buttonless iPhone if it looked like a seamless sheet of glass? Or is removing physical buttons a deal breaker no matter how good the haptics get? Give me your line in the sand in the comments, and I'll feature the strongest arguments in the next video. See you in the next one.